Westray, or Papa Westray, which is just known locally as Pappy, if you don't know, are two of the northernmost isles in Orkney. Westray's about 1.5 hours sailing time out of Kirkwall, and Pappy's about 2 hours by ferry, and they're both growing, but small populations. Westray's up from about 520 to 600 odd in the past 15 years, and Pappy's grown from about 45 to 80 in that time. So they're big proportional increases, but they're still small populations that we're working with. We've really not, I think, done anything here other than make use of what's locally available, and the resource that's most available to us here is wind, which we have in abundance. There's rarely a day without some kind of a decent breeze, and plenty of days where you've got severe gale. It's actually going a good hoolie outside at the moment. So we put in a 6 kilowatt turbine in the Westray Kirk about 17 or 18 years ago, and that was at a time when we were doing major renovations in the building, and that was just to provide direct heating. So, you know, provides heating in the sanctuary worship area, if you like, of the Kirk building. And very soon after that, we installed a ground source heat pump in the Kirk to provide heating for ancillary spaces, the kitchen, the loos, and other rooms and things. Since then, we've put in a ground source heat pump and a 5.5 kilowatt turbine at the manse, a 5.5 kilowatt turbine in Pappy for the Kirk there, and also another 6 kilowatt turbine at the Kirk. And unlike the first one, which only provides direct heating, these ones are all grid connected. So we get feed-in tariff payments for them by supplying electricity back to the grid. That means that we are net generators of power. We still use mains electricity. You still have to plug the coffee machine and the digital projector into the wall, but we generate more than we use in both congregations, which is also the same with Westray as an island, where we've two very large community-owned, wholly community-owned turbines generating income for the community. So we're self-sufficient, both as a congregation and as an island, in the sense of generating more than we use, but not in the sense of being off-grid, which we've no intentions of being. That's the main kind of energy things, the headline things, if you like, but they're not really a big deal. It's just using what we have available here and turning something that can be detrimental into something that can be an asset. And also it was very much in our interests to try and get off using oil, not just for ecological and environmental reasons, but also for the cost. And the cost of oil here is prohibitively expensive, because it all has to be brought in at least 2 ferries. So, I mean, to give you an example, at the moment, we're paying £1.65 a litre for petrol at the local pumps here. It's £1.45 a litre, I know, in Kirkwall. I don't know what it is off the Orkney mainland just now, but the prices of all these things, that goes for coal or anything that you import to the island, they've got a big add-on price. So we're keen to get off that as well, so that there's very much a financial reason, a local financial reason for doing this, as well as the wider environmental benefits. It's just using what we have available. And there are plenty other kirks and other community buildings in remote rural areas, particularly exposed areas, who I think could make use similarly of wind turbines, but it would be much more difficult to set up a wind turbine in any kind of urban setting. You'd be much less likely to get planning permission or grant help for it, and you might have a lot of objections to it. It would also be less efficient in any case. But if you're in that situation, you might be able to make better use of something like solar panels than we can. Solar energy really isn't that efficient here, and things like ground source or air source heat pumps can be installed almost everywhere. Other than that, and more generally on climate change, we just encourage and promote the obvious, which I'm sure most folk are doing, things like recycling and energy efficiency measurements and reuse, ethical investment, fair trade, everything else you can think of, which is all a link in the chain. And I think for me, that's where eco-congregation comes into it. And I couldn't talk about this without mentioning the eco-congregation programme. We found that an extremely useful process in tying all these bits together. And I know that many of you will be well aware of the eco-congregation agenda and will be thoroughly involved in it. But I think there's still a perception out there sometimes that it's really just to do with energy efficient buildings and with having bonny gardens in our kirks, and it's not. It's to do with the whole justice agenda. It's concerned with social justice and environmental justice, as it is with what you're doing locally for recycling. So, you know, they assess us very much to do with our partner links in Malawi and in Zimbabwe, and in what we do in connection with Christian aid and tradecraft, and in how we work with our local Baptist and Quaker neighbours on the island, and integration in the community, in the school, and all that kind of thing, as they do about narrowly environmental issues. And when you pull them all together, it just gives you something of a focus of all these issues that we know are so interconnected, particularly in relation to climate crisis. And I've been a bit cynical over the years about the award thing and getting plaques to display. But when you do have a gold award plaque or something, it gives a kind of congregational as well as a community focus, something not just to be proud of, but something to ensure that you maintain these standards or keep these standards going. It's an incentive to people as well as a focus, but pride and purpose in what they've achieved. Carol said to say something about what we've got planned for COP26. We've got nothing in particular planned for COP26. We will have, or will likely have, some prayer meetings in both aisles to focus on it. That's not fixed yet. But I don't think we will have a special COP26 service. Obviously there will be some focus on it in prayers and in sermons and the rest of worship, but there always is, because the wider issues are unavoidably part of the theology that informs our congregational life, or, you know, I think ought to be. I did assemblies, for example, in the secondary school here in Westray yesterday, with a focus on COP26, because that's what I was asked to do. But if COP26 hadn't been happening next month, that there's every chance that it would have been about climate change or something related to it in one way or another, because that's such a major concern just now, and is, I'm encouraged to say, a big concern of the youngsters too. So I would say it's not about plaudits or recognition. It's just doing what you can do locally and what fits your own situation locally. And certainly one size doesn't fit all. What works in an urban situation might not work here, and vice versa. I would also say it's about pushing it as far as you can into the wider community. I can say more about that later if folk want, but to try and make these things not just to do with the congregation, but things that the community and groups within the community as well as individuals will buy into. But as far as having a particular focus on COP26 goes, I would rather just have a general focus throughout the whole year, and to try and keep this in the agenda all the time. And of course, you know, we have particular focuses in Christian Aid Week or Harvest Thanksgiving or whatever, but it's really, I think, has to be about keeping it in the agenda every Sunday, every day actually, when you can, rather than just having the one-off spectaculars.